I'm Emily Mashak, and I'm joined here today by Jason Taylor and Deems Hargo Road, the founders of NOCO 100. So welcome today, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Now, to start off, we're going to go with the very basic question. For those who aren't familiar, what is NOCO 100?
Well, basic of basic, NOCO 100, we try to get 100 people in a room to write a $100 check for 3 charities that compete for the funding. That's the bare bone basics.
Yeah, I kind of describe it like a Shark Tank for nonprofits locally.
Okay, all right. I like that. I like that. And how did you come up with this idea?
Well, it started out, a friend of mine, Lance Livestead, has a business here in Loveland. He and I were trying to figure out how to give back to the community. We started out doing art shows out of our building, the Butte House down in Loveland here. We're doing art shows. We were spending about as much as we were raising. So we tried to find a different way to raise the money. And we had heard of an organization called 100 Men or 100 Women Who Care. And we tried to recreate that in our own original way with the superhero theme.
That's awesome. Now, your mission is to make a difference in Northern Colorado and in the community of Northern Colorado. Can you just tell me a little bit more about how you came to focus on that and build NOCO 100 around that?
It originated because I am a board member on the Alliance for Suicide Prevention. I was acting treasurer a couple years back, and they asked me to help on a grant. I spent 12 hours on a grant, and we received $20,000. And I thought there's got to be an easier way for charities to get money. I've talked to a lot of different charities, and they all spend hours on grants, and where they should be out in the community, doing the services that they want to do,
right,
and not having to raise funds. So we're trying to figure out a quick way for charities to raise money to do what they do best.
And just to add on to that, Jason brought me in, and it was kind of a neat way for me of where I could go and, write a check, but know that it's going to have such a greater impact within that end, and knowing that, the heavy lifting is already kind of being done by having, these charities selected. And so it's just kind of neat to know that, hey, look, I can make a specialized gift and knowing where it's kind of going, but it's going to have such a greater impact. If I write a check for $100 to a nonprofit, it doesn't make they're going to appreciate it. But again, right. Last time we gave a check away for, I can't remember our winning organization, but it was pretty significant. So
you can be sure that it's going to the right place with
right.
NOCO 100.
Right.
That's great. Now let's get a little bit more into the details. So I get the general gist of how this works, but I know you start with members and then they go to a selected charity, or how does it go?
Right. Each member usually it's brought in by friend telling a friend type of situation. We've done one other radio show and got a few people with that, so we appreciate the opportunity to speak on a larger number of people.
Of course.
But once they get to our website, they log on to sign up, and they get to nominate 3 charities. Now, we only ask that when you sign up on our website that you agree to come to 4 meetings. So 1 year cycle, and so that'd be a $400 dedication basically, and you get to nominate 3 charities, and then we will randomly draw the 3 charities that from right now we have 60 on our list, 60 charities that have been nominated, and we randomly draw 3 to compete.
Okay, so it's just totally randomized?
It is. We actually ask the prior quarter people who presented to give us a number between 1 and 60.
Oh, okay.
And that's how we pick the next 3.
Gotcha. How do you, or can people nominate any charity that they choose, or are there stipulations or regulations to which charities can benefit?
There are a few stipulations, like it has to be a local charity. The money has to stay here locally.
Okay.
We also try to stay away from national chapters unless they have a local designated chapter here in Fort Collins, Windsor, Loveland, Greeley, somewhere in northern Colorado, where the funds are actually being used.
Mm-hmm.
We also stay away from religious organizations and Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops, just because there's so many of them.
Right. Now, any person can sign up to be a member and be a part of this, or do you have to be a business or a corporation to
We
get
want
involved?
anyone and everyone that's willing to write a $100 check.
How close are you to your goal of finding 100 individuals? Is it something that's difficult to accomplish, or has it come pretty easy?
It is a lot more difficult than we had thought it would be. We've hit as high as 30 people, and we've been as low as 10 people. It's a fluctuating number. Right now, we're about 20 active members, to where we can count on them every single week, every single quarter to show up.
Right. Well, hopefully this will help.
Yes,
Hopefully, yeah,
absolutely.
get the word out there for sure. And you mentioned this earlier, but just so people are aware and know, how can they join this group?
Easiest way is to go to www.noco100.org, and it is NOCO100.org. And I have to make sure it's .org because there's a .com website as well.
Gotcha.
Which is a
Okay.
completely different organization.
Okay. So .org.
.org.
And we have a great Facebook page as well too, which is a great way to get connected as well from that. So if Facebook's better for you, we've got a great site there too.
And that's just NOCO 100 as well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. So once you join the group, walk me through what that's like. What are the meetings like? How does it feel over the course of the year?
The meetings are basically, you'll get a reminder 2 weeks before the event. A day before the event, you show up, you have your checks in hand. When you show up, there's going to be food and drink available to you. That's one thing I forgot to mention. High Country Beverage has stepped up to offer us a space in their building here, which we've been bouncing from place to place, which has stunted our growth. So with High Country's beverage support, we have, they supply the drinks, we bring food in, and so all the members, they sit, they talk and enjoy themselves, and then we have the 3 charities speak about what they do, where the money would go, and we vote. It's pretty straightforward. We keep it very timely. We know people's time is important.
And if people are unable to make it to a meeting, how does that work? Or do they got to be there every time?
In order to vote, you have to attend.
Okay.
However, if you're not there, we still plan on receiving a check for the charity from you.
Gotcha. And then you are a member?
I am a member, right? And yeah, so I've been involved for about the last 2.5 years. So
Oh, that's great.
it's been a lot of fun.
Can you tell me just a little bit more about your experience personally with joining NOCO 100?
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, like I said, Jason had told me about it. It took me a couple of times to come to the meetings, but Jason's very persistent, which is great.
That's good. That's good.
And so it was really fun to be able to kind of go. And I think one of the coolest things that I've learned about is that you get to learn about all these different organizations that I had no idea were in Northern Colorado. I think that is probably one of the greatest benefits. I'm very involved in our Rotary Club and some of these other organizations where trying to make a difference from that end. And so knowing about some of these organizations and if different people can get connected, regardless of them, being the winner or not being the winner. And I think that's the other important thing from a charity standpoint is there's times where I've written, checks to each of those organizations. Even it may not be $100 necessarily, but I say, hey, look, I really like what you're doing. Maybe I'll write you a $50 check to be there. And so it's a great way for these nonprofits to get the word out, regardless if they win or not. So it's and I think that's what the feedback that we've had from those organizations.
So it really benefits a charity to participate regardless.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It's like sounds weird. Like even if you don't win, you're definitely you're definitely winning. Which I think if you talk to any of the nonprofits who participated, I think they would agree with that statement.
Are nonprofits able to, I guess, not nominate themselves, but get involved, or do they have to wait for a member to reach out to them?
They have to become members themselves.
Okay.
We've had a couple people do that. Where they're a charity and also a member of the group, so they write $100 checks.
Gotcha.
But then they have the opportunity to nominate themselves.
They can nominate themselves.
If they become a member, yes.
Alrighty, good to know.
And that's kind of one of the coolest incentives is that to become a member and then to have that ability to say, hey, look, I really, and there was a charity, Insight Skills Center, who I had been on their board for a while and had nominated them, and they were one of the winners, and I was really excited about that just because then you really want your the charity that you nominate, you want them to of course win, and so that always makes it kind of a neat end to hopefully get you have a lot more say in the process.
Yeah, it makes it really personal for the Northern Colorado community.
Exactly.
How have you personally seen NOCO 100 impact these charities and make a difference so far?
And I won't mention any names, but one of our organizations actually doubled their budget for the year.
Oh wow!
And it wasn't a huge amount, but they were able to double the amount of people they helped after winning our grand prize for the night.
That's fantastic.
And I think another important thing to point out too is just from an administrative standpoint, there's no administrative costs that we have, which is really good. So that if I know that I'm donating $100, that it's going entirely all to that charity. There's no business overhead. The founders have agreed to underwrite certain expenses that might be relayed with it, whether it be just whatever it is. So I think that's one of the other big benefits compared to maybe other organizations where you might donate something, but you know that some of it's going to go to administrative costs. We don't have any administrative costs.
So it's all benefiting Northern Colorado.
Exactly.
Right. That's great. Now, I know you recently had an event at High Country Beverage.
Right.
Do you have any other upcoming events that people can learn more about NOCO 100?
Our next NOCO 100 event is November 20th.
Okay.
And it starts at 5:30, and once again at High Country Beverage down there by Shields.
Is it for members, or can anyone just come and learn about it?
You can always just come and check it out. I always warn people, bring your checkbook. Because after listening to the three, you'll definitely wish you had something to give at that night.
I will say my first meeting, I definitely heeded Jason's advice and really glad that I did. So,
Yeah.
I kind of came in not really sure what to expect. And it was neat just because I was like, yep, this is who I want to donate to. So anybody can come in at that point, even if you haven't registered ahead of time. I mean, we're relatively informal from that end where you don't have to necessarily RSVP ahead of time. Just if you're there at 5, come with your checkbook and be ready to be impressed by what's going on with some of our local nonprofits.
That's great. So the local nonprofits that are nominated will be at the event?
Yes, that's one thing that makes us different from other groups. Because there is a group in town called Guys Who Give, which is a great organization as well. One thing, it's all guys. Ours is co-ed. And the second is the person who nominates the charity makes a presentation, whereas we invite the charity in to make their own presentation.
Okay, so you can really hear what it's about from the people themselves.
Absolutely. Right. Yep. No, and that's really neat to see that one of the people who was at our presentation had a very amazing personal end of how that charity benefited them so much in their lives personally. And so, when you get to hear kind of the personal their personal stories, it really makes it a lot more powerful, I think, in terms of really truly understanding what that organization can do or what they have accomplished.
Now, backtracking a little bit, I know you guys have a superhero theme going on. Tell me a little bit more about that. How did you come up with that?
Well, the way I look at it is, personally, I'm a financial planner, come from a family of accountants, and that's really the whole Clark Kent, boring in the normal world, and you give back to the community, and it's kind of. It makes you feel good and it's uplifting and it makes you feel like you can fly like Superman. So that's kind of how we got on the superhero kick. And most actually are members right now. I mean, they're boring bankers like deans. We've got a couple of CPAs, and so that's the superhero theme. Really kind of lifts everyone up and makes them feel stronger and like they can really give back.
I like it. It's really fun.
It is. No, it is always good to have kind of a theme that you can kind of relate to and that everybody can appreciate. So it kind of puts a good visual identity to it. So.
Yeah, I think so. You can't go wrong with superheroes.
No, definitely not.
Where do you see NOCO 100 going from here in the future?
Well, we're hoping that we hit 100 plus. We've got plans for growth. If we hit 100, splitting and trying to hit 100 again and again over and over. Was really our hopes in the beginning was to multiply this as much as possible to where we're raising hundreds of thousands, not just tens of thousands.
Yeah, we want to definitely kind of have that impact of when someone gets nominated, that it's the biggest deal that they have going on within, that quarter of their year, potentially of where they know that they're going to be speaking to some people where they're going to come away with hopefully a check for, $100,000. And that's huge for pretty much any nonprofit here. And so that'll be just amazing to know when we do that. And so it's, kind of builds organically, kind of like a snowball and gets bigger and bigger. But we're excited to see it get to the next level.
Definitely. I'm excited as well. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today and getting to learn about NOCO 100. It sounds like a great organization, and it's such a unique idea. I really love what you guys are doing.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. We hope to see you at the next meeting.
Yes,
Thanks
definitely. I'll see if I can stop by. Now, before we go, one last thing. Just what would your last words that you want to get on the airwaves about NOCO 100? If you could leave the audience with a final thought.
Reflect on what the community's done for you and what you can do to give back to the community.
I've lived here since 2005, seen a lot of changes, but I think one of the most amazing things about, I think that Northern Colorado is a very special place. And I think that how we relate with our nonprofits to make our community better is so important and what makes us so different, I think, than a lot of other places. And so this is one of the great tools to keep Northern Colorado and the making it as special as it is today.
I think we can all agree it's pretty special. So we're glad to hear that you're contributing to that in this awesome way.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Again, that was Jason Taylor and Deems Hargel Road, some of the founders of NOCO 100. If you would like to learn more about this organization, you can visit NOCO100.org.